And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. This is Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here with our continuing series of NBA team previews. We're going to drop for you. It is, of course, to the H's and Houston. Here we come. Houston Rockets, one of the big wigs this upcoming season, if all goes well for them in the Western Conference, and a potential spoiler as far as the OKC Thunder is concerned, as well as far as possibly being the major roadblock in the way of the OKC Thunder in a back-to-back aspirations for them. Also, as well, Denver. Who knows about the other teams in the Western Conference, including the Lakers? Anyone's game. But Houston has loaded up this offseason. Who better to describe what's going on with the Houston Rockets than obviously someone that can really get you into the Houston sports scene, and no better place to go than on YouTube with Houston Sports Talk with Robert Land. Robert, great to have you on the show. Make sure everyone out there, though, please like and subscribe to his great content.
Thanks so much. Just so excited. I mean, Rockets fans can't be more excited. It's been an incredible run the last few years to go from where they were, just 4 years ago to, the hopes that they have this year. So excited. Can't wait till the season starts. It's just been a joyride the last couple of years. So this has been extraordinary.
I will tell you what, Robert, seeing and evaluating your team over the past couple seasons, the growth of the team, the front office doing a fantastic job of making the right moves, the right decisions, the contracts, the young talent they wanted to keep, the young talent they wanted to send away, but in return, get what you need to get as far as to help better your roster. The way that Ime Udoka has implemented the two big lineup, just a lot of things to admire about what they've done. But one of the weaknesses heading into the playoffs, I don't know if you probably saw that. I'm sure you probably saw it as well, as the half court offense, because Houston, with the athletes and the length and the size, the capabilities, offensive rebounding and defense were always at a premium with Houston Rockets. But during the playoffs against Golden State, you could clearly see maybe some flaws as far as just like the Lakers in the half court offense are concerned in some cases as well. But they alleviated a lot of that if all goes well and the health wise with Kevin Durant. Tell us, I'll just in basically, your own words, what you think Kevin Durant's addition will do for your team.
Well, it's no secret to anybody that watched the Rockets last year. The problem was end of games. What do you do? Where do you go to? And the Rockets didn't have that guy. And Jalen Green just never developed into the guy. That's the guy that you were hoping for when they drafted Jalen. I thought that was the right thing to do because, Mobley was there. There were people that said Mobley was the draft pick there. Some people said Jalen. But, if you follow the NBA at all, the guy that can get his shot off and do that stuff offensively, physically, that nobody else can do, that's what you need to win a championship. You need that go-to guy. And Mobley just didn't look like he was going to turn into that go-to guy. But Jalen had that possibility. He incredible athlete, looked like he could get his shot off from any different angle with that athleticism. And it looked like he was going to grow into that guy. And it just never happen. And that's where the Rockets were stuck. And Şengün, we love Şengün, but he's not somebody that you can necessarily go to because he still doesn't have an outside shot, doesn't have a 3-point shot. He was really struggling, unfortunately, last year, which was very unusual for him. He couldn't even hit a lot of the shots inside 5 feet. He was missing some of the gimmies, but Şengün, tremendous player, but just felt like he was more of a 2 or a 3 on a championship team, not the go-to number 1 guy. So yeah, Durant just changes the whole equation, and nobody that was a true Rockets fan, there were some Jalen fans, but there was no true Rockets fans that thought this trade wasn't extraordinary because we just knew Jalen was somebody that was going to be a bad contract in a couple of years with, how he was projecting and he was more like a sixth man almost. If we're being honest, just somebody that you give the ball to, and if he's going, great. If he's not, get him out of the game. So that's a sixth man to me. And you change him for Durant. The only concern with Durant, obviously, age and injuries, and we'll see how that goes. But I mean, worst case scenario, if they don't get this contract done, and if he feels like he's going to walk in a year, then you're not still stuck with the Jalen contract. Dylan Brooks was somebody that was a great guy to get these guys going, but he was somebody that was supposed to only be temporary anyway, as far as teaching these guys how to play and stuff like that. And he was also a low IQ player, as was Jalen. And to change those two low IQ players for a super high IQ player like Kevin Durant, it's such a big deal, Gerald. I mean, that's something that a lot of fans, if you're not watching the Rockets, you don't understand. Having high IQ guys, and Udoka mentioned that. He mentioned that at the end of the year. We need more high IQ guys. So this is a big deal.
I will say this because I've been watching Kevin Durant's game for quite a spell. I've been a great admirer of his. I think he's one of the he's one of the elite players of all time. Don't be surprised at his passing. I will say, especially with his time in Brooklyn, I saw some passes by him that really just say, wow, he has that capability if he so chooses to use it. And then that offense, mentoring a lot of these young guys, the Şengün's, the Thompsons, the Tari Easons out there. He has the capability, yes, to score 25. We get that. That's not the problem. But first off, obviously, is health. He needs to be fresh and healthy going into the playoffs. I get that. But working with these young guys, what he can teach them over the course of what he's learned over the valuable career that he has is extremely beneficial to your team, especially for a young team that's wanting to be where Oklahoma City was at, in a young team wanting to take that next step.
Yeah, and you talk about guys that he can help out. Jabari has worked with him during the summer. So, Jabari and him have a little bit of a relationship already. And Jabari is somebody that sort of gets lost in the mix at times,
Yes.
even at times by the Rockets fans. But, I just feel like there's a lot more left on the table for Jabari. He's in his fourth year. Now, big men typically take longer to develop. One of the things that he came in with was the shot that we just assumed was going to be this automatic shot. We thought, okay, we're getting 6'11" Klay Thompson. He has not been that yet, but towards the end of last year, all of a sudden the shot started to become a little bit more automatic. He was getting better at it. He shot incredibly well in the playoffs. And it's just been a matter of what else can he do? Like how can he improve that game? And it's not just the shot. You got to have the ability to pass or the ability to dribble a little bit better. His handle's not that great, but if he can work on some of those things like passing and handle with somebody that's his size, his length, has a shot similar to his, I mean, then all of a sudden you might be able to unlock a guy like Jabari Smith. And I feel like he could be helped as much as anybody with the addition of Kevin Durant. And that's somebody that I think if you're not a fan of the Rockets, keep an eye out for that. This could be a big leap year for Jabari, and he got that nice extension. So he should be pretty excited about that too.
And actually a very team-friendly one at that, the way it's structured. So, again, kudos to the front office for that. I mean, your front office, again, has done a very admirable job. One of the best front office jobs, I think, this decade. OKC, and the similarities between OKC and Houston because of the way that you're bringing along this young talent has to always be there. But then again, you saw OKC where they ended up, but Houston could very well end up there as well. The depth on your team is really something that they've emulated because they've made really good decisions with the talent. Reed Shepherd drafting him. You also have Amen Thompson, who could potentially be a breakout superstar this season. Tari Eason, I know there's not a contract as of this recording. available yet for him, but I'm assuming that something will be signed imminently. But he has provided some youth and energy coming off the bench for you guys. You got the veteran Steven Adams and Clint Capella manning the front court, and Dorian Finney-Smith moving over from the Lakers to there. Just so many different options and looks that you guys can give other teams out there with the depth that you have.
Yeah, Steven Adams is somebody that unless he's on your team, you have no idea the impact that Steven Adams gives you. I mean, we look at the plus minus numbers with Steven Adams on the floor last year, and it was unbelievable, especially once he was healthy. The first couple of months, he was still getting his legs back. He just wasn't the Steven Adams that everybody knows. But by the time January and February rolled around, you're like, oh, this guy, now he looks like he's back. It looks like the old Steven Adams. And it was unreal. Like when he came into the game, we were always better. We were better with Steven Adams out there. And this is from a guy that doesn't have a jump shot, not a big scorer, not somebody that's going to score unless he's hitting a layup or a dunk or something like that. But Steven Adams, the rebounding, the screen setting, the defense, just all of these little things that he does. And that two big lineup, everybody, I felt like sort of discovered what the Rockets were doing in the playoffs, but that was going on the last couple of months of the season. It actually started the first time they did the two big lineup was Anthony Edwards. It was right after the Luka trade. So it was Anthony's first game with Dallas. And that was the game that he got hurt in. But until he got hurt, the Rockets were having all sorts of issues. So they were like, well, let's go big. And they brought in Steven Adams to combat all the size with the Mavericks. And then they realized, oh, wait, we got something here with this, with Steven Adams and Şengün on the floor at the same time, because, the ball would go up and those two guys would just suck the balls in off the rim left and right. And Steven Adams was great at that anyway, but you put him out there with Şengün, and it also opened up the game for Şengün a little bit because, there was stuff that he didn't have to worry about when he got the ball in his hands. He didn't have to worry about the rebound with the ball in his hands. He could just, play his game offensively a little bit more. It gave him a little bit more leeway and things like that. And it just felt like that opened up Şengün's game a lot too, to play with Steven. So yeah, that was a big, like, new toy in the, in the toy room for Udoka as the season went along and into the playoffs. And, the only thing was that they were trying to limit his minutes all year last year because of the injury. So at times you were like, can we just not play Steven Adams just a little bit more? Because those double big lineups were just so successful.
He sets the meanest pick in all the NBA by far. I'm still trying. Our joke on the show, and our joke when we watch games on playback was, if you got into an alley fight and you had James Johnson, who is a 7th-degree black belt, I don't know if he's still playing for Indiana this year or not, or Steven Adams, who, talked about his upbringing, the 13 kids and all that from New Zealand, that he's the youngest and all that, and how he is. I don't know who would win in that fight, but I'll say both are pretty darn tough, to say the least. And like you said, his offensive rebounding numbers are just off the charts.
Right. And, they bring in Capella. What I don't know, and I've talked to people that were covering Capella last year, is he going to be able to do the same type of things that Steven Adams does in a double big lineup? But it's depth. I thought it's a little bit of an overpay, paying him $7 million a year for the next 3 years. I question that. We loved him when he was here, but he's obviously not the same Capella that left us a few years ago. So, that's a piece of the puzzle. Really, Gerald, if we're talking about weaknesses for the Rockets, the big concern is what about the games that Kevin Durant can't play? Then who's the go-to guy? How do they get shooting and scoring and all that sort of stuff? And then it becomes very hopeful and very you're rolling dice a lot on Reed Shepherd. And Reed Shepherd really needs to take the step forward. There was he played 2 summer league games. We saw the Reed Shepherd that we needed in the first summer league game. and then he didn't look good at all in the it was terrible in the second summer league game. So, Reed Shepherd, he could shoot, but he just didn't shoot consistently like we thought he would last year. You assume that's going to come around. The other big question is just defensively. Can you play him defensively in the playoffs? He's not a good defensive player, even though he's got good hands. But his size, he doesn't have the length. He doesn't have the bigger hips that you might need from a smaller guy to help you kind of be like just a bowling ball and tough to roll over. And, you don't have the broad shoulders. I look at that, what a Kyle Lowry at that size does, or some of the other players that are smaller. You can't just, zip past them or roll them over or anything like that. So that's the issue with Reed Shepherd, and whether he can be somebody that you can actually play in the playoffs, or somebody that is going to be able to help you on the nights where KD is either sitting out, age or whatever they want to sit him out for, injuries, or just, if he gets hurt for a while, is Reed Shepherd going to be able to help you out? Because, the shooting is still a big issue. And it's mostly because you're depending a lot on two guys that are super talented, just can't shoot. And that Şengün and Amen Thompson. And hopefully that we'll see some advancement from those guys, that they've added something to their game. But, we've been waiting for years for Şengün, and it just hasn't happened yet. Some people cite what he's done with the international stuff the last couple of weeks, but I got to see it on an NBA court before I believe, and I got to see it consistently. And Amen, he's going to get better. It's just he started from zero, and it's hard to go from zero to a guy that's maybe a 7 out of 10 shooter or something, which is all you really need from him. Like 7 out of 10 is as far as shooting goes in the NBA, and if you get that. With everything else that he can do, he's just amazing. But he's always in the lab, and he will be better this year. Amen Thompson is just, he's got a computer for a brain, and he's always working. He's everything that you want, and what I think is going to be a real superstar in the future.
And that's something I want to talk to you about here in a sec. Elaborate a little bit more on Amen Thompson. Once again, I'm on with Robert Land. Please go ahead and start off the experience with Robert Land right now by going ahead and liking and subscribing at Houston Sports Talk with Robert Land. That's available right now on YouTube. Please like his videos, subscribe. He puts a lot of effort, got a lot of videos, ton of videos on the Houston sports scene. So go ahead and make sure you follow him today, subscribe, and make sure you go ahead and catch what he's doing at Houston Sports Talk. Robert, again, I think the key to your season, yes, obviously the health, and ability for Kevin Durant to mesh with the Houston Rockets. I don't have any doubt as far as the one part of it, the health part of it always with Kevin, but the meshing as a veteran with this younger crowd, I don't think it's how should I say it? I don't think it's going to be very hard or difficult for him, because as someone who's been through the wars and it's just the talented players he is, I think it's absolutely going to be a huge benefit for the Houston Rockets team. But I think if your team is able to go ahead and get over the hump and get by the Denvers, the Minnesotas, the Lakers, the OKCs of the world, or the Clevelands, New Yorks, or whoever you want to throw in the East, I think a lot, like you said, has to rely on Amen Thompson taking that next step. I just wanted to go ahead and hear your thoughts a little bit more on Amen Thompson, because his ascension to superstardom seems like it's going to happen. But do the Houston Rockets need to have it happen sooner rather than later?
I don't know if they need to have, if they want to do something this year. Obviously, it would have to be a leap this year that would be a pretty huge leap. But it's not none of this feels urgent. You think, oh, you get Kevin Durant, you got to win this year, you got to win next year. What I think Kevin Durant does is help some hopefully get to maybe the second round of the playoffs, or get to the Western Conference Finals potentially, but gets them more experience in the playoffs than they would have gotten before. I think the fans, that they're going to want a championship, but we got Kevin Durant, we got the final piece, whatever. There's a lot of fans that look at it that way. I just see it as, Kevin Durant gives this team the experience of playing in more big games. Hopefully it's, you get past the first round, and then once you get to the second or third round, then that's when it gets really another level. You find out kind of what you're made of and that sort of thing. And Amen Thompson, this is the thing about him. I mean, he's clutch. We've already seen it. He's clutch. He makes big plays at big times. He does so many things on the floor. I mean, a lot of the stuff that a lot of people might not even see, but if you look at his box score, it's some of that stuff is there. The rebounds. He's an incredible passer, and that will get better when his shot gets better. I mean, you got to have the ability to draw some people your way so you can get guys open. But he's an incredible passer. One of the things he's got to get better at besides the shot is the handle, because I think if his handle becomes from average to, really good to elite, it gives them the ability, the way Russell Westbrook had that ability to just, get to the hole no matter what, even though he couldn't shoot. He was just such an incredible athlete. It was like, what do you do with the guy? He's coming at you full speed. He can go either way, do all these sorts of things. And so, yeah, Amen Thompson's going to be a super. I mean, we knew it from the first time we saw him in a summer league game. All that stuff was showing immediately. And there was this confidence in this guy, because I don't know if I've seen somebody that, you watch him and it just doesn't seem like he's going to screw up the same thing two times in a row. He just picks things up so quickly and figures it out. Just love Amen Thompson. I mean, Tari Eason makes winning plays and he does a lot of great stuff, but the IQ can be a little bit suspect at times. With Amen Thompson, the IQ is just unbelievable. Even Şengün, really smart player, but there are times where, it's like, that wasn't the smartest play to make or whatever. Amen Thompson, that's never a factor with him. So, all the hype about him is real. And if you watched against Golden State, as that series went along, it seemed like it took him the first 3 or 4 games. And then all of a sudden you just saw it creep up a notch. He got hurt at the end of the series, which really was a killer in that final game, because he started to show you the guy that he was. If you're watching that game, all of a sudden he started taking over the whole game, and he can do that. I mean, and the quicker he figures it out, the rest of the league is in real trouble as he figures this thing out really quickly and understands what he's capable of and what he can do. But yeah, he's the real deal.
I agree with you. Robert. Absolutely on that one. So just a couple more questions, just real quick. Of course, Jalen Green traded to Phoenix, Dillon Brooks along with it, kind of shuffles the starting lineup as far as it's concerned. Let's say you're on the staff of the Houston Rockets and you're advising Ime Udoka on what you think the starting lineup should be. What is that starting lineup you would roll out for this season?
Well, my guess the starting lineup's going to be Şengün, Jabari, Amen, KD, and Fred Van Vleet. I don't know if I can really argue that a whole lot. Tari Eason is the only other guy that feels like he would be in that discussion in the starting 5. But I really like the energy that Tari brings off the bench. The fans love that energy too. There were times, in the last couple of years that you felt like he should be starting, except the injuries just killed it. But, they were struggling. Jabari was struggling at times over the last couple of years. Jalen was struggling. And there were times we were just like, yeah, just put Tari in the starting lineup because he leads to wins. And I agreed with that. I wanted Tari to start the last 2 years. This is the first time in the last 3 years that I didn't want Tari to start. And I think it makes sense that Jabari would be in the starting lineup because I think his shooting is better, and having him out there will help. He's a much better shooter than Tari Eason is. Then, I think it's good to you swapped out Dillon Brooks, and you guys saw a lot of Dorian Finney-Smith. To have that guy coming off the bench. We didn't want Dillon Brooks out there. That was another thing. It wasn't just Jalen. It was Dillon as a starter was a little bit overrated defensively. He had become a pretty decent, he was a really good offensive player last year, but defensively, he became extremely overrated with the Rockets last year. So that's another reason I think you wanted Tari out there, because it wasn't just Jalen, it was Dillon that was a problem too. And so, at this point, to have somebody like Dorian Finney-Smith and basically swap him out for Dillon Brooks, who cheaper than Dillon Brooks, not quite maybe as versatile offensively, but defensively, I think Dorian Finney-Smith, from everything that I've heard from everybody, is better than Dillon Brooks at this point, and can definitely play all sorts of different guys out there, where I think Dillon, you put him on some of the smaller guys and you could drive by him and do those sorts of things. But yeah, I would expect, and I would agree with you, Doka, at this point that, yeah, you start Jabari along with Şengün, and then of course Amen in the front court. Amen's a given, at this point.
Absolutely. It's just the thing is, as far as the shooting, the natural shooting guard skills that I think a lot of people were concerned about. Jalen Green, for however you talk about, he was just more of a natural fit at the shooting guard position. But Amen Thompson, like you said, is just so talented. Jabari Smith, just so talented. I'm not sure how you leave them out of a starting lineup with what you have there. And if either one of them, Jabari, most likely of the two, can provide you with that 38 to 42% shooting from outside alongside Kevin Durant, I think that alleviates any concerns as far as what your team might have given up as far as maybe a more natural fit with Brooks and Green.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I don't even think in terms anymore of who's playing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want the 5 guys that can defend out there. The key is, can you put these certain 5 guys that can defend different positions and stuff like that? Because the way the PA announcer might do it is, he might say, Amen Thompson is at a guard position with Fred Van Vleet, but Amen Thompson, the way he plays at times is more like a big, and the way KD plays is he's a shooting guard on this team, basically. I mean, that's what his role is going to be, is, you're on the perimeter, you're opening up space for everybody else. And that's what he's going to virtually be in this offense. I mean, offensively, that's what it's going to be. Defensively, it's just, can you guard everybody on the floor and between all those guys and all the length? And don't forget, another thing, Gerald, I think everybody's going to figure out pretty quickly that the Rockets are lengthy. I mean, you talk about real length. I mean, that starting lineup, everybody except Fred Van Vleet has got a 7-foot wingspan or more. And Dorian Finney-Smith has a 7-foot wingspan. And Tari Eason has a 7-foot wingspan. And Steven Adams has a 7-foot wingspan. So outside of Reed Shepherd and Fred Van Vleet, they're huge. They're tall, lengthy, hard to shoot over. It's going to be a real chore for everybody out there with all the length that the Rockets have. I mean, people talk about some of these other teams with length, and the Rockets, they're going to be about the tallest team in the NBA as far as when you look at wingspan, which is what I look at. The Lakers, they've got Luka and you got LeBron, but it's where else is the wingspan going to come from besides DeAndre Ayton? And I think that's the thing is, if you can switch in today's NBA with just about everybody, it gets real hard. And even Fred Van Vleet, you don't think of him as, oh, he can't guard a 7-footer. Oh, Fred, he's a fighter in the post. He's a fighter down low, and he'll get the ball out of your hands, and he'll figure out a way to do it. So the Rockets are going to be really difficult to score on. I mean, this is going to be one of the best defenses in the NBA, and they were last year, and I think they just got better.
With the length, with the athleticism, with the youth in right places, with the size, absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more on that. So if everything went right, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this. It's one of the top 5 teams in the NBA. I live in Vegas. So I'm used to seeing what the numbers are right now, and Houston is very much near the top as far as the odds are concerned. So if everything went right, how far do you see this team going this season?
Well, an injury to OKC, and they're in the finals. OKC is still a better team, I think, because not only do they have SGA, but they got Jalen Williams, who's turning into like a mini superstar. But maybe Amen is close to Jalen Williams by the end of the season. We'll see. The issue with OKC is now they have the experience already. All of their young guys have the experience of going to a finals. Now we'll see, can they keep the emotion and passion, and can they keep the drive to do this a second year in a row, because it gets harder. But I'd still say OKC second. As far as everybody else is concerned, I think the Rockets can compete with anybody. They can beat anybody. They've done a really good job against Denver. I think Denver did really good things in the offseason to improve themselves, but Şengün loves to get up for Jokic. We saw it this last week, what he did against Jokic. He loves, that's his hero. That's his idol. So whenever he plays Jokic, you can tell his level turns it up another notch. Denver, I think, I understand why they would be the favorite over the Rockets in Vegas. They are a slight favorite over the Rockets to get to the finals. They have Jokic. He's the best player in the NBA, I think, at this point still. I mean, you can argue him or SGA, but they're 1-2. And Jokic is, still maybe the best player. But, I think the Rockets definitely know how to play against the Nuggets and are a good matchup against them. Everybody else, I mean, there's nobody else that I'm scared of. There's nobody else I don't think they can beat. OKC is, to me, that's really they're the ones. But it's all about luck in the NBA with the injuries. And can the Rockets get some luck when they get into playoffs? And would OKC, if somebody gets a little bit nicked up, somebody's not quite 100% or whatever. We saw Jalen Williams even last year. He struggled at times in the playoffs. Turns out he was hurt, and maybe he would have even been better in the playoffs this past year. So I think that's the deal. Nobody out east, of course, scares the Rockets. I mean, they beat the Cavaliers twice in a week. When the Cavaliers were the highest team in the NBA last year, they beat them twice. They beat Boston when Boston was, healthy in the regular season. And that in a 1 week span and 3 game span, I believe they beat Cleveland, Boston, and Cleveland again. So they're not scared of anybody out east, and pretty good matchup against anybody out east, I feel like. But OKC is legit. We have a lot of respect for them.
So before we head on out, and before you let everyone know exactly what you're in tune with as far as Houston sports talk, and also as well Houston sports in general, everything that you want to go ahead and plug, your thoughts on the Lakers. I ask each and every NBA analyst, each and every NBA expert for their specific teams. I always like to get a perspective from an outsider, non-Lakers fan's opinion on the team heading into the season. So with that said, may I ask, how do you perceive the Lakers this season? You mentioned a little bit before.
The Lakers feel like about they're like mid in the West. I think they're 4 or 5, maybe slightly below or pretty even with Minnesota. Obviously, those teams face off in the playoffs, and I just felt like in that when they faced off against Minnesota, I thought just way too reliant on the 5 starters. I think JJ Redick showed his inexperience as a coach. But when I look at the Lakers, I'm not liking the depth still. The depth is the issue. But, if Luka could actually stay healthy all this year, he had the injuries last year. And if this, body by Jake, this new version of Luka is here to stay, and all of a sudden he can turn this into being a really good defender, then, that's very scary. And I think that could bump them up, and, maybe they're up to the 3rd best team in the West or something like that, if that's the case, or they're battling with the Denver and the Rockets for the 2-3 seed. That's possible. But yeah, the depth is something that I'm just not real confident in. getting DeAndre Ayton to, play like a real player on an every game basis is going to be difficult. But I mean, we know about Luka. I mean, we saw him all the time, obviously, in our division, and he would crush us, and he's a pain to deal with. And LeBron, once you get to the playoffs, and it's he's not having to play back to backs and all that. If he still's got that gas left in the tank, then he's going to be trouble. But I just don't feel like the depth is quite there. Austin Reeves is a really good player, but nah, just the bench. It's a problem. I had on one of my best friends is the guy behind Lakers Ground, so I had him on. If anybody wants to go check that on Houston Sports Talk, he created Lakers Ground. He's the guy for Lakers Ground. His name's Steven, and we talked a little bit about some of the Lakers and the Rockets, and where things are in the Western Conference and stuff like that. So the Lakers, they still got, they're still going to have to figure out ways to surround Luka with some of the guys that I think would really make him flourish and take another team like he did the Mavericks a couple of years ago to the finals. But I mean, just to have Luka, I mean, it's like I told my friend, I'm like, God, you guys, the amount of luck, and just there must be some rabbit's foot charmed life. And this isn't about being in LA, because if it was, the Clippers would not be the Clippers. This is about the Lakers could fall back. They could fall in a bunch of crap and find $1 million underneath all the crap, cut, and gold bullions and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And, it's frustrating, as somebody with another fan base. I mean, I grew up with Magic Johnson. I grew up with, the Magic and Kareem years and stuff like that. And, I at least get to remind him that we did beat the Lakers in '86 and the great Ralph Sampson shot of that year. And, that was really one of the peak moments of my childhood was watching that. And, but still, it's been frustrating over the years because, other organizations we're grinding and grinding to find that guy. And then the Lakers, just no matter what they do, they fall into that guy, whether it's, Luka or Kobe or Magic or Shaq or, and it's a lot of times it's two of those guys, Kareem and, so it's real frustrating.
But I tell you what, you're right, exactly right on the depth. I have great concerns on it. They were one of the worst performing benches in the league last year. They did get a couple of additions in Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia, but again, like you said, there's still a lot of issues and concerns on the bench that we have as well on our show. And you're right, a lot would have to go right. You talked about earlier about injuries and health and of some of the other teams like OKC or Denver. I think a lot has to go right in order for the Lakers to get to that upper echelon where I think Houston is going to be at. So we'll definitely wait and see. But yeah, absolutely just fantastic talking to you. I hope to be able to have the opportunity to touch base with you again during the season if you'll allow me to. But before we head on out, I would love to have you share with everybody exactly where you're at and how to find you on all the great stuff you do in regards to Houston sports.
Yeah, pretty simple on X. It's at HST Podcast, Houston Sports Talk on YouTube. Robert Land might help you a little bit. Houston Sports Talk, Robert Land. Just type that in. You'll find my content. And, I cover all this teams, Astros, Rockets, Texans, even doing live Texans post-game shows on YouTube. I grew up with all the teams, so I cover everything. And if you go to my Houston sports history playlist on the channel, we get into, I've got interviews with some of the media and some of the players and coaches from the past as well. So there's a lot of interviews with the ex-Houston Oilers, some Houston Cougar stuff in there as well, all the different Houston sports connections and stuff like that. I mean, there's an interview with one of our great sports writers, Mickey Herskowitz, who worked in Houston for the Chronicle and Post for 50 years, from the 50s until the 2000s. And, you don't have to be a Houston sports fan to go listen to this interview, which is fantastic. I talked to Mickey about Muhammad Ali, and Mickey knew Ali, and he's got great, stories of actually hanging out with Muhammad Ali, like 20 minutes of just one good story after another, of being on an airplane with him and driving through Harlem and where he's jumping out of the car, talking to kids and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of fun stuff. Even if you're not a big Houston sports fan, you might run into some interesting stuff. I talked to Buddy Blattner, who was the original television Game of the Week host. I talked to him about 30 years ago, and he passed away before my show started, but I had an interview with him, and, we were talking about, he mentioned he had a conversation about Vin Scully. So I know LA fans will be interested in that. There's definitely some great Vin Scully stories on my channel too, because I'm such a Scully fan. And even I talked to a former player that played in Double-A and briefly played in the major leagues, but was a high school classmate of Vin Scully. And Vin told him in high school that, he hopes to call his first home run in the major leagues. And that actually happened. Vin Scully actually called his first home run in the major leagues.
Nice.
So that was a great story. And this, this same guy actually played against, he played against some of the Brooklyn Dodgers and stuff like that. So, there's that. I also talked to a guy named Buddy Blattner, who hit the last home run for the Brooklyn Dodgers in Brooklyn before they moved to Los Angeles. And, he has tremendous stories about playing for those old Brooklyn Dodger teams and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just kind of some interesting stuff on my Houston Sports Talk channel for those that want to go check that out.
Absolutely. And you can do it by going today to like and subscribe right there for you at Houston Sports Talk with Robert Land. Real easy to get to. Please go ahead and make sure you subscribe while you're there. Check out all the over 2,000 videos waiting for you right there with Houston Sports Talk with Robert Land. Robert, again, it's been great having you on. I look forward to hopefully getting the opportunity again to bring you back on the show. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
No, just looking forward to Christmas Day. Guess who's playing on Christmas Day?
Indeed it is. Merry Christmas, I guess that would be the best way to say it. Of course, Houston now in the limelight because one of the top NBA teams now going to be part of that scenario, I'm assuming for many years forward, because this team is young, it's hungry, it's talented, and it's ready to do some damage here in the NBA. Rest assured, it looks quite like it indeed. And Robert, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to speak to me today, right here as part of our NBA team previews on the Lakers Fast Break podcast.